Um, it's going to be important keeping track of your client and your server, really keeping them separate. Your client is accessing your server. Everything is happening on the server. As we create directories, as we make changes, yes, you are using your Windows computer. What you're using it, though, to do is to manipulate your server on the back end. It's really difficult to keep track of that because we're using the Windows computer, making all these changes. We shut down that computer. We think we're going to take a snapshot of that. Don't. Make sure that you're actually taking a snapshot of your server as you're working with it. So yeah, you took a snapshot there then? Good. You don't have to worry too much about the date and time on the snapshot. It's automatically marked on it. So when you click Take Snapshot, and then go back to VM, and no, click back on your server, go up to VM up on top, and then go to Snapshots, and click on Snapshot Manager. When you click on a snapshot, down the bottom underneath the description, actually click on a snapshot, it shows the date and time that it was taken right above the description area. So okay, so go ahead and close that, start up your server again. That's not a bad idea at all. It's just nice to take a snapshot at the beginning of class every day. Even if you took one at the end of last class, it's just to make sure of where you're at. You know, reverting back to the wrong snapshot or too far back and not having one, or think, oh yeah, I'll just revert back. I can always go forward again. If you didn't take one or you took it on the wrong system, it's not going to help you at all. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at files. Not sure why it's asking me for that. Let's check it out. Okay, working with files, again, we're kind of limited. We don't have a lot of functions and features with them. This is not how you would access a Word document that you want to edit regularly or an Excel spreadsheet. If you needed to get a file, you could get it. You end up downloading it, and then you make the changes to it and you could re-upload it. Or if somebody needed information, you could certainly put it on the server for them. Say you even took a picture of something somewhere and you needed to upload it for them to access for a presentation or for just general information or whatever, you can do it this way. Let's go in the NFL directory to sort of keep everything under NFL. And I want to upload a file to the NFL directory. And you do that with the upload link. When you click upload, you choose the file that you want to upload. It does make you do them one at a time. So unfortunately you can't choose multiple files. But here's a picture of a koala. And I upload it. And there's a picture of the koala.
What if I want penguins?
If you want penguins, let's go ahead and upload penguins.
Let me say that because they're all so dressed up. Dressed to the nines.
Now this is a case where you have JPEG files. Let's go ahead and upload something else. Choose a file. I don't know, music. Do we have sample music?
Click NFL.
There we go.
Now go up to
So here's an MP3 file that I'm going to upload as well. It doesn't matter what it is, it's going to upload it. It's going to put it all up there.
upload more than one?
Sure, upload a couple of them.
Alright.
As long as we're on the screen right now, let me just talk a little bit about the file attributes. If you notice, they automatically, when you copy a file up to the server, they're automatically marked with the archive attribute. That means that they've never been backed up. If I back them up, the archive attribute goes away, and it stays away until the file gets changed. Not accessed, but changed. Being an MP3 file and a JPEG file, those files shouldn't be changing unless you're actually editing using something like MP3 editor or JPEG editor, usually just viewing them. Okay, let's take a look at some of the other attributes though. As you can see, it's a much longer list. And I'll just kind of go through this kind of briefly. And again, we're not going to be working with the actual attributes typically when we're using file system rights. System and hidden, actually system, let's start with system, are usually operating system type files. They can be other files, but just really related to the operation of the system as a whole. Be careful here also, because if you mark something as hidden, a system, it will also become hidden, and we won't be able to access it directly from here. Hidden is just hidden. You can't see it. So when you do a directory listing, it's not going to show up. Archive, we talked about. Purging and compressing and migrating. They have the exact same effect here, except only on this individual file. So even though I don't have the directory listed as immediate purge, I could have this Kalimba file. If somebody deleted it, it won't go to the recycle bin. Don't compress, don't migrate it, delete and rename inhibit, and then immediate compress. These are the same as the folders. These are the same as the folder attributes. It just adds a couple more on the bottom that are file specific. One is read only. I make the file read only. This is a safe one to try. So if I click read only, if I click OK, you can see it switches from read write to read only. So you can't edit this file. So if you did have an editor, you wouldn't be able to change the contents of it. Shareable. If checked, this indicates the file may be used by multiple users at the same time. When you open a file, typically it locks it, and when you lock the file, no one else can access it at that time. And that's meant for a purpose, especially for editing. You cannot have more than 2 people edit a Word document, the same Word document at the same time. It just doesn't work. It's not designed that way. A text file, any kind of files that you actually edit the content with cannot be edited by multiple people. So just by checking this doesn't make that work. Like, oh yeah, I can now have multiple people work on Excel at the same time by making that file shareable. It doesn't work that way. It's more for databases that are true multi-user designed, so you can access them that way. Most of the time when you install applications, they'll figure out what attributes they need and put them on appropriately for which files are shareable. But it's just out there. Suballocation. I don't want to get real deep into this, but if you think of when you store files on a disk, they're stored in blocks. So it's an area of the disk that you're starting writing a file to. They're all the same size. If a file does not take up the entire block, that block is used up. The next file starts in the next block. Novell has developed the capability of actually using those empty spaces and blocks for additional files. It's called sub-block allocation. And it's just saying don't use that for this file. We have execute only. You won't be able to delete it. You won't be able to modify the file. All you can do is run it. That's as if it's an executable. Transactional. There's a transactional tracking. This can be used again usually for databases. It keeps track of what transactions happened. If you think of like banking or point of sale type things where you have a lot of transactions happening, sometimes transactions don't get posted. Something happens, it gets stuck or whatever. It keeps track of those transactions so you can reapply them. Also, you can back out of transactions. Something happened, oh, it crashed, whatever failed, I can back out of a transaction as well. So it keeps track of the individual transactions, not just the ultimate end result. And then copy and inhibit. You can't copy the file. You can delete it, you just can't copy it or do anything else with it that way. Okay, go ahead and we're just going to click OK here. We'll just leave all the defaults here of what it was set. Archive and read write. And now we can take a look at the files themselves. Is there a question? No? Okay. For some file formats, if I click on it, it actually brings it up. So there's my koala. and I can see it. For the MP3, it will actually play because my browser supports it. And I'll stop that. For other file formats, it's going to just basically, like, I don't know what to do with this, so I'm going to download it. If I wanted to have these things, I can right-click them and save link as or whatever, or I can open them up and then also save it from here as well. Save as, and that's the web page. Can't do it from there. Let's do the picture. And I can save the image as, and as you can see, it's going to save it as the koala. Let me go back and look at the renaming, and so you can sort of see that I am actually saving that file. So koala, I have the same icons to the left-hand side as I do with the directories. A little bit different icon, but the same directory, same column, the info column. I have the koala picture. I click on the info button next to it. I have just a little bit more information up on top. Not only do I have the creation date, that's what directories have, are creation dates, I also have the last modified and the last accessed timestamps on there as well. What file size it is, I still have all my trustee information on here, but then I have the delete file and rename file. Say for koala, I want to change it to koala 1, and now that's my new name for koala 1. If I click on koala 1 and then I save the image, it is saving as koala 1, and I can put this to my desktop if that's what I want to save. So you're able to access files off the server just through a web browser, again, if you're not connected. If you're connected to the server, obviously you just get it right from your mapped drive, from your M drive, whatever, K drive, your P drive. But this is a way of accessing it in a different way. Working with deleting files. Say I want to get rid of the koala file. Down the bottom, right next to rename, is where we delete files. So if I delete the file, I click yes, I want to delete koala, and I want to delete the MP3 because I really don't like that song. And then, oh, I don't know, just sort of in the habit of this, so whatever's left here, I delete as well. Are you sure you want to delete this file? Yes. And they'll say, yeah, but I want to keep the penguins file, though. This is where the salvaging comes in. None of those 3 files are actually been deleted. They've just been put into the trash, is what the equivalent is. And now we can recover it. To recover it, you need to be in the directory that the files were in. So that is one thing you have to know using this tool, is where the file's been. So if somebody says, oh, I deleted the penguins file, or I don't know what happened to my penguins file. They were there and all of a sudden they just disappeared. Well, where was that located? Well, they're located in the NFL directory. So I go to the NFL directory, and I want to work with that directory. So what do I click on? The one next to the 1 dot. So I click on here, and I have all this information up on top and rename directory and subdirectories. But if you notice, right above all this, it says salvageable files. And it says select for the list. And so again, let me just go back. So I go to volumes. Person calls up, says I lost my penguins on the NFL folder. Okay, let's go to NFL. Click on the info because I'm working with NFL. And right down towards the bottom, salvageable files, select for a list. And it shows all the files that have been there. You have 2 options. And they make it really, really obvious. Green and red. Green and red.
Red saves, right?
Red is saving, right. Salvage is green. I really want something back, so I really want the penguins back. By the way, what's really nice about this, if the user says, your system's all messed up, it corrupted my files, and now my penguin file is gone. Okay, well, you can look right over here. It says the deleted date and time was September 13th at 2:12 p.m. by, and it gives the user's name. So it says Tom deleted this, and if Joe calls up and says my file is gone, I can say, well, Tom deleted it for some reason. Go and talk to him, or find out why he deleted it, or figure out if those are the right rights. Maybe we shouldn't do that. To get it back, you just click salvage. And now it's not on this list anymore. I can click back to the directory list, and there's my penguins file. If I wanted to look at the rest of those salvage files, I can find them. I can click on salvage. I can purge them individually. Or you have the big red button up on top. If you have thousands and thousands of files in here, you just click purge all, and then they're gone. There is no undo from at this point, though. They are gone at this point. The only way that you would get them back is off of tape. So if you have a tape backup, you could do it. Going back to the data, though, if I clicked on the info next to NFL, now it says salvageable files, none. So there's no more salvageable files. That's when you know that there's nothing there. So for files, we can upload them, we can download them, we can rename them, and then we can delete them, and we can salvage them. And we looked at the file attributes a little bit as well. Questions?
Should we delete all the pictures we did have on?
Completely up to you what you want to delete or keep. Don't do anything with trustees. Nothing with trustees. You want to do what now? Okay, try and create a directory, the original NFL directory. It's always these links on the left-hand side of the current location, the current directory. It's always down the bottom. The very, very bottom is the name, and then create the subdirectory at the bottom. Don't do anything with trustees here. Don't do anything with inherited rights. Later on, we're going to talk about file space restrictions. Right there, there's none. And those are all things that we work with. Today, we're only working with creating directories. And then if we're in a directory, we'll be able to delete a directory, rename a directory, or create a directory. So these are the things we're working with today, all on the bottom. We're going to actually implement this with a real as we're going to get, situation. And we're going to take a look at come on. Under Novell class files that you were given a Garopa org chart. And this is sort of the business scenario that we'll be using. If we kind of look at this, this is the business that we want to be implementing. It's kind of like a box of Legos. How would you sort this?
Exactly how they did it.
By department. Okay, that makes really good sense. Kind of jot some of the notes down of how you want to do this, because I have to flip screens here, so you're not going to see both of them. Okay, starting with my data volume, how would you then organize this? Let me try to just make this big. Oh, don't want to do that. That's not working at all. So I have data. I have my data volume. Where do I go from under there? Where are some departments I might work with? Well, there's sales. And there's operations. And let's see, there's accounting. And
IS and HR.
IS. And there's HR. Anybody else? What with the president?
Wouldn't those all be under? Or those that would be the president too. You're right, president too.
We put that on top and put everybody else underneath there?
No.
Why not? Okay.
He's still part of that same line.
Yeah, a lot of people would have actually probably put president way up on top, like where data is in fact listed right now. Putting president, because that's organizationally that's how it looks. Underneath president is sales and operations and accounting and IS and HR and that kind of stuff, right? The problem is when we do that, when we work with security, everything is given at that level and flows on down. So if I give certain rights to the president's folder, what's going to happen? It's going to flow on down to all the rest of the folders, and that doesn't make much sense. It is, in fact, organizationally, when we look at the organizational chart, absolutely, Madison is the president, and Sarah in operations reports to her. But when we talk about what they're keeping their files are just like any other department. We're working with it. Okay. Anything else I might want to include in here? Might want to break this apart any other way? Management? What about management? You could have an overall management folder, and that's a really good idea. It's sharing among the managers. I'm just going to give, I'm sort of jumping ahead because when we get to rights, this will make a little bit more sense, hopefully, is being able to actually, let me reduce this here. Is actually having a shared folder in general for everybody. So there's a common place that you can go to if you need to share something between departments or whatever. And then what you can do, and we'll kind of play with that later on among other scenarios, is having having a manager folder underneath there. And then other scenarios of I need these people to share, I need these people to share, these people to share. But it's almost like going back, do I have a very long list of directories or do I try to break it up? And if there's something that I'm talking about for shared, I want everybody to have all their shared stuff underneath here. I can secure it all separately, so just the managers will have access to here. Maybe all the employees will have access to here. Maybe just accounting and operations will share here. But it's one place where I'm dealing with all those shared kinds of things. And we come up with all kinds of different scenarios when we talk about that when we get into that section dealing with rights. How about the user's individual files, like personal files and things? What are we going to do with them? You could. And that is one model of doing that, in fact. So Madison is under executive, somebody else is under human resources or whatever. Yeah, homie. Yeah, that part of the E didn't come out very well.
It doesn't even look part of the E at the same time with the E next to it.
No, that was actually the left part of the E. Sorry. But you can put them underneath there, and there's pros and cons to that. If you read different books, you'll see different analogies. Madison's the president, so we'll put her home folder underneath the executive folder. Once you start putting folders, who should have access to the Madison folder? Madison. So now I'm working with the executive folder, as a whole, saying that, oh, these people should have access to the executive folder, and this folder that's inside of here, no one should have access to except this one person. It gets really kind of complicated, and it's just like you can absolutely do it. That's what's nice about rights, is you can do anything that you want to do, but why make it complicated? Having a separate place just for home folders. That's why, in fact, why we have a separate volume. You created a home volume for it. It's not even mixed up with the data, in fact, at all. It's here's the data, here's the accounting information, and here's the Sally, here's the Emma, here's the Taylor, here's the, you know, Benjamin folders or whatever for all the individual users. That's just one way of doing it. There's lots of different ways, and we can talk about that when we get into rights and things. And you can do it any way you want. Really, there's no one right way of doing it. We're just agreeing on a direction right now just so that we can all implement it the same way. Even if you don't like it, you know, implement your own and do whatever you want. But ultimately, I like to see you have this directory structure so that when we talk about the data folder or the sales volume or sales folder, that you'll have one. You'll say, well, I didn't do it that way. Well, it's hard to talk about it. Yes?
So under the data, are we just going to delete NFL then? And then
You can, or you can just keep it there. It doesn't really matter what you do.
All of them with NFL. Why don't we just delete it?
You can. You can certainly delete it. Is there anything else you would break down further, or is that far enough as you'd go with the directory structure? How about sales? We have an east and a west. Yeah. Under operations. First, second, third. Even under accounting, we have a whole separate section on the bottom dealing with Arthur Anderson. That could be a subsection. But if you're looking within accounting also, we have a couple people doing different kinds of jobs. We have 2 people doing accounts payable, and we have a couple people doing accounts receivables. So you can break them apart that way. IS, HR, and executive really don't have a lot, but you could break them up if you wanted to. Yes?
Well, like say with sales, you have East and West. What if you
Yes.
wanted to put a folder in there that East and West would share? That way they can communicate back and forth.
Oh, we're definitely going to do that. In fact, I'm just trying to concentrate just on the directory structure right now, but you're always thinking ahead to what's the rights going to be. In fact, we're going to be setting it up so both of them can access and do anything they want in the sales folder. So that is their shared area. So if I'm you know, in Los Angeles, I can access and do all kinds of stuff to the sales folder and to the sales west folder. If I'm out in New York, I can access all the sales folder stuff, and then I can access the sales east folder stuff.
So anything you wanted to really share between, you just put the sales folder.
Absolutely. The same thing with operations. It's each of the shifts can still access the operations folder. So those are the things that you put in common there, such as policies, procedures, forms, maybe the budget or whatever. But then, you know, if you're really keeping your divisions separate, east and west divisions for whatever reason, this is just an arbitrary scenario. Maybe your clients you would keep in your folder then, and they would keep their clients in their folder. You know, they don't need to mix and match or whatever. Accounting would be very, very clear distinctions. Accounts payable should not be able to access or do anything with accounts receivable, and vice versa. Payables and receivables need to be completely separate, but they still have common things that they need to access, and that would be in the accounting folder. So payable stuff, you know, wouldn't be in there, but again, policies, procedures, budgeting, you know, just general accounting department information would be kept there.
You know, I was thinking of it a different way, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to using like sales, you'd have East West,
Mm-hmm.
and then you'd have like a shared folder
Mm-hmm.
in the sales folder, and then
Sure, you can absolutely do it that way, and some people do it that way. In fact, it's easier that way for setting up rights because we're not giving rights and then taking some away. So it's easier that way. But imagine if you're in the sales department and every time that you wanted to do something with a sales file, that you couldn't do anything in sales, that I always had to click on sales and then go to shared for everything, or sales and east. If I'm working in the sales department, I just want to go to sales and that's my files. And then I am separated, you know, by account or whatever. It's just really easy for the user. It's easier your way for us for setting it up, but I couldn't imagine. It's sort of like going into My Documents and then clicking on Shared every time you want to save a document. You know, oh yeah, you can't do anything at this level. You have to go down one more level every time, whether it's to the east or to Shared. I know what you're saying, though. That's excellent thinking. Excellent thinking. Other thoughts or comments?
AA is Arthur Anderson, correct?
AA is Arthur Anderson. AR is accounts receivable. You can call them receivable, or payable, or whatever. And how we implement the security later on is a different topic. That might bring up, you know, other discussions as far as, you know, what are some other good ideas of the directory structure. Maybe it's going to help us out with the different directory structure to give us the security that we need, that we want. Today, the main purpose is just getting you used to creating directories and working with files through the web, through the remote manager. Because it's not intuitive and because, you know, there's lots of different clicking, and do I click on the word, do I click on the icon next to it, where's the create button? I just want you practicing with this. It's not something we use all the time, you know, but it's a good tool to do it. And because it's not as obvious, you know, the more practice, the better. You can delete NFL. One click will delete the whole thing. You click on the NFL and you tell it to, well, let's go to it. Oh, wrong one. I can click next to NFL. I can say delete the directory and its contents, and I say yes, and it's all gone. I can salvage the NFL as well. And then I have to salvage each individual part of that, though, of AFC and NFC. So when I delete it, it deletes everything, but then you can salvage it directory by directory back again. So when I salvaged NFL, I still have to salvage AFC and salvage NFC. And then with AFC and NFC, I can then salvage my north, south, east, and west. Where's the salvage button? If I want to salvage something, so say like in NFL, I have a Penguins file that I want to salvage. I click on the icon next to NFL, and then it says salvageable files. It's right above our create, rename, and delete buttons. I select the files that I want to salvage, and it's the big green button. It says salvage. If you didn't delete anything, you won't have a salvage option. So you want to be able to get to that screen.
NFL, if you had something, you can't delete it before you can delete the NFL.
Sure, you can delete everything under. When you delete a folder, it deletes it and everything in it. I missed the question. I'm sorry. Okay.
I didn't have it. I had NFL.
Sure.
Nothing inside. So
Okay.
Just click there.
Sure. Then click on NFL. Click on the icon next to info, and then create AFC and NFC.
Okay, and delete it. Click on the folder to the left of it.
Mm-hmm. If I want to delete NFL, I click on the folder next to it. Delete the directory and contents. Yes, and now they're all gone.
And if you have something underneath it, can you still just do what you just did there and all be gone?
What I just did, deleted NFL, deleted AFC, deleted East, Northeast, South, and West out of the AFC and NFC, and all of its files. So penguins, koalas, MP3 files, everything gets deleted. At the file level, it'll only delete the files. If it doesn't do anything with users. Other questions? Lots of clicking, lots of different places, so please practice. That's all I have for you today. The rest of the day is just for practicing. Make sure your servers are working, make sure you have snapshots, make sure you have backups, and that, again, you're feeling comfortable with navigating, creating, and deleting. Yes?
So under each, we got the shared folder.
Yes.
Under like sales, operations, accounting, are we having a manager folder, or is that going to be part of the shared folder?
For the managers, for right now, I would suggest just creating a shared folder. And then underneath shared, if you want to, so clicking next to shared, I can create a managers folder. So within the shared folder is a managers folder, and that'd be just one of many examples. We'll be creating a special events team, we'll be creating a quality assurance team. We can create, some kind of accounting operations shared folder, or an executive and human resources shared, or any kind of shared things that we want to put under there. And there's just a public area, just where can people put stuff that's good for everybody, for the whole company. Should everybody be able to delete it? Should only certain people to add and other people delete? And that deals with all the rights we talk about.
I understand that, but like,
okay.
I was kind of thinking like sales department.
Under
so
sales,
just the managers of the sales, do they have their own folder?
you certainly could. So if I have sales,
I mean,
here's a sales folder.
You have managers that use
Sure.
managers from all the areas.
So right now, sales, this is for all the salespeople. And maybe underneath sales, obviously I'll have my east and my west. And maybe just a managers folder, just a sales managers folder. So only the managers, so the east manager, west manager, and then the vice president of sales would all be able to just access that. Sure. Yeah, we'll probably actually implement that when we work with rights later on. Of showing how to do that. How do we give rights to everybody for sales, only the managers for the managers folder, and then only east and west for the east and west folders. That's where it gets fun. I really, really enjoy the rights, implementing those rights. Todd?
So the first step is when you create your main folder.
Yes.
Sales.
Mm-hmm. If you're in the root of the data volume, then you'll be looking at using the dot. The dot's going to change. So if I'm in sales, this dot means something different than this dot does. This dot means I'm going to create a directory in the data volume. This dot means I'm going to create a directory in the sales directory.
So for sales one, use your first step.
For the first sales one, you make sure that you're in the data volume, and you click on the icon next to the single dot.
And then under executive, you have assistant and president. Would you have assistant?
I probably wouldn't. You certainly could. If I have an executive folder, do I need a separate one for the president herself? Separate from her assistant? Possibly. It depends on how closely they work together. In many instances, the assistant and the president the assistant has complete access to everything that the president does in many, many situations. Just because the way that they work together, they have access to all the same files. Even if it's confidential information, the assistant is right there.
All right. So then,
but you could, if you wanted to have one for the president, one for the assistant, you certainly could.
so otherwise, where would the assistant go under the president?
That's dealing with the users themselves. Right now we're just talking about where they're going to put their files. So the assistant doesn't need a place to put his files.
All right.
In this scenario. I mean, they certainly could. It's very possible that there could be a whole group of presidential assistants.
So then under the home, then if we go back to home, then we're supposed to add all of the users.
No, you do not have to. You can practice start doing that. You can start putting, you know, people's home directories in there, like Emma or Taylor. You could do that. What we're going to do later on when we start creating users, during the creation process, it automatically creates home directories.
All right.
So it creates the folder and gives the proper rights. So right now we have a person here, we have a folder here, and again, this isn't going to make any sense yet, but there's no trustees. So trustees, no one can access this folder is what it's saying. And so it's extra work.
I kind of missed what you said, but like, we're not creating the users.
No, we're not creating any users.
Alexis, or any of them.
No, no
The
users.
departments and
Just the departments.
So accounting would have payable, receivable, and Arthur Anderson.
Correct.
Executive would just have president. HR has nothing because there's no one under HR. IS has help desk and senior network administrator.
Possibly, but even that I probably won't even put. I mean, it's just the IS department. They might have separate files. You only have 3 people. Do we need a separate folder for each of them?
Yes, and then operations for second, third.
That I would definitely separate. Mm-hmm. Other questions? Okay, the rest of the day is yours.
East, west,